Hey everybody, welcome to Your Unpaid Therapist.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Your Unpaid Therapist.
I'm not getting paid. I didn't even get a donut.
Oh, that's sexy though. I like it.
I'm Valerie Milagros Ortiz.
I don't know. I am your host, Alicona. She's away. Brad Ford.
This is Your Unpaid Therapist. Shoo-wah, cha-cha. Get it on the floor. Get it on the floor. Who hit the floor? James LaRosa did, today's guest. Now, this was the first and only time Val and I decided to use AirPods for our mics. Not such a bueno idea because I have really tiny ears and they kept falling out. So bear with us. My sound gets a little distorted here and there, but James LaRosa sounds amazing and crisp, and he does most of the talking, so you're good. Either way, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's get to it.
This episode is actually really, really special because our guest is really
Solely responsible for this podcast. He just doesn't realize it.
yes. Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been where I needed to be to meet Alicona. So
Yeah.
it all kind of comes full circle.
So he's talented. He's amazing. He sings. And he does now. And joining us today is the writer, creator of Hit the Floor, Mr. James LaRosa.
Woo! I love that the only thing I know about your podcast is that I whip the thing off and reveal myself.
Yeah, that was so beautiful.
Aw.
I'm a little confused.
Oh, was I supposed to be shirtless as well? Is this like a topless podcast?
An homage to Hit the Floor. All the men being.
Any chance I get to take off a layer, I'm down. I'm really hoping that this is like a big gotcha thing where you're like, do you remember you said that thing and didn't get canceled 12 years ago? Well, we dug it up. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
Tell us more. So really this, Your Unpaid Therapist, it was really born just because we all have, our friends and our people that we go to and talk about all the things. And there are unpaid therapists. We normally have a therapist,
We don't pay.
who's still an unpaid therapist, who gives us advice and stuff like that, for our listeners. But we were just like, we need to have James. We need to talk to him. Because of you, we are here. And also, we have so much, I feel like, so much life that you've lived since we've all been together. So
Yes.
we want to get into it.
But first, how we always start our show is with an icebreaker called
Mhm.
Never Have I Ever.
Okay.
So we'll pick a card at random.
All right.
Never have I ever, and I'll read the card, your pick for you.
I'm ready.
And then, you just have to tell us if you have or have not. And if you have, you tell us the story that accompanies it.
Okay. I'm
But
ready.
we're gonna go first so you can see how we do. And
Oh, it's
then
fine. Listen, I will bury anybody. I will name names. I will burn bridges. Let's do this.
Okay.
Okay. Never have I ever stolen anything. The only thing I can think of is when I was a kid. I think my parents told me I stole a Cookie Monster toothbrush, which is like, that's so boring. Like,
Especially with your smile. Like you literally are a Crest commercial and you're like, I stole a toothbrush. That's wild. I don't know why I would have done that.
Oh my god, it's so stupid. But I don't know. That I
went
can
to
think
an
of.
unnamed children's jewelry store when I was younger and stuffed some earrings in my sleeve. I know. My mom would fall over.
Unnamed children's. Why?
Jewelry store unnamed because I'm not trying to get prostituted.
Okay, no, I know, but like, is there an example of
This
it like
was
Claire's?
last week. This was last week. She's
I
like
know, I
an
was
unnamed
like,
child store.
chill.
I can't mention.
I
They're
was like,
coming
what
for me.
I know what an unnamed child's jewelry store.
Next.
Claire's.
I mean,
What
Claire's
about-
the way Claire's is set up, it's like begging you to steal from them anyway.
All right.
So your examples are very like, I don't know. One time there was like, I went through a span where I was just like an absolute shoplifter. And there was it was brief, but it was wild. Like I was very good when I was younger, and then I got to like middle school or even like early high school, and I was like, oh, you can do this, and I wanted to like rebel. So there were like stores in my neighborhood, and I'd always give myself the 5 finger discount, whatever. And I had friends that we really encouraged each other to really go bigger and better. And at one point, there was a store which I will name, McCrory's, and, and they don't exist anymore. So it's fine, bring your lawyers. But it was, but I had a friend who was a cashier there, and the manager left, and she's like, okay, come on over. And I went over, she gave me the biggest bag, and I was like going aisle to aisle, like knocking shit in, like singing a song. I left with like comforters. I like literally robbed the place. Okay, but like VHS tapes, if that gives you, I would say that's a time capsule, but also it was like a 5 and dime, so like it could that
Today, yeah.
they always have VHS.
Yeah.
And then, but I actually was cured by Disney World because I went to Disney World when I was, it's early high school, maybe it was in high school. And I went with my friends, and when I showed up, and I was still kind of doing it. And when I showed up, everything was like super like clean and meticulous, and it's a world up. And I was just like, it's too like friendly and nice. I can't steal something here. And once I left, having not stolen anything, I never stole anything ever again in the rest of my life. So Walt Disney World, you're in Maine.
Disney. Wow, that is really funny. I'm just mad that it was a comforter. Like you even got a whole comforter in a bag. Like,
well, that was what I had to do because when you work with someone, you have to sort of like cut them in, and she needed a comforter, so I was getting like the sheets and the comforter. Does she need this lamp?
That's almost as bad as a toothbrush. Like not even like cute jeans.
Right.
Oh god, that's so
not even
funny.
Cute jeans.
A whole comforter set. I mean, listen, that's
go bigger, go home.
Exactly.
But I was actually let's just expand upon this story. I actually was like I actually like stole. Like I can't believe I'm talking about this on a podcast. This is but like money. So suddenly it goes dark, and you're like, you're an unpaid therapist, and I'm like, cure this motherfucker, cure this. But I worked at a dry cleaner where they had a no sale button, and so I figured out that you could get the money, hit no sale, add the change up in your mind, give it to them, don't call the ticket numbers like out of the system, and you can go home with cash every night. I've just told people how to steal, but
you did. This is going to be a special episode. Like people are going to have to like do extra stuff to get this kind of
content. This is behind the paywall. This is the Patreon, which I will steal from you. I will take the but I actually was I was very good at it, and there was like and I was like 15 years old. But I was really good at it. Like because I was like super smart, and I went to a super smart high school where they said that you either made the most brilliant scientists or the most brilliant criminals. And when I got to this high school, everyone, like it was like the best kid from every school went to this high school.
Wow.
So I went from being like, yeah, I'm the best kid at the school, I have the highest grades. And when I went to my high school, everybody was that kid. So suddenly I had like way more competition, and I was like, I don't like competition, fuck that. So then I just became a monster. And I just like cheated and stuff.
So interesting.
But just to I got this like true confessions. I had coffee before this. But so basically I was good at it, and there was this really cute at the time. I mean, it was like suburban Boston. He was I'm sure he was like a bog beast by today's standards, but I was like, he's so cute. And so I was like kind of doing a little flexing. And I was like, oh, sometimes I like rob this place blind. And so, and he's like, oh, and he was not smart. And he did it once and got caught. And so they were like, finally, they like added up everything. And they're like, you're responsible for all of this. And he's like, what? And I couldn't let him take the fall for everything I had done. So then I had to kind of go, it was me. And then I went through the system where I had to go in front of a judge. I went there multiple times.
Wow.
I was indicted and arraigned in juvie court. No one ever this is
This is
boom, boom,
oh my
boom.
God.
And
What's this show?
yeah, right. It's good. It'll end up somewhere.
It will.
And then the end of it,
That's so crazy.
I won't say how it ends because it ends in a very suspect way. I will say that I wound up uh, needing to keep my record clean for 6 months so that it didn't go on my record. I couldn't get any trouble for 6 months. And I remember going back to school and people like, hey, do you want to go do this or do that? I'm like, no, I can't. I have to keep my record clean. It's not like I was really, really working that one.
That is funny.
So never have I ever. Next question.
No.
Okay, never have I ever faked an orgasm. Hasn't, right?
No.
I actually have, which is tricky to do as a man to fake an orgasm, but I have done it. It was just going on so long. Do you know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm tired.
Right.
I could see that, but I feel like once you fake it, I guess in that it makes sense because you're just like, let's be done. But
let's be done.
Can we? Yeah, that makes sense to me. But where I feel like faking it would mess you up, it's just like they think they did good. I'm not trying to let anybody think that they did that they're on the right track by me. You know what I mean? And
Okay, so Val,
So
there's a
that's where I
difference
go.
between faking it and giving the Valerie Ortiz thespian extravaganza experience. You're not sitting there doing like Meg Ryan and When Harry Met Sally, and you're giving them like you're gonna
just
down.
being like, oh, I'm good.
Could you imagine? That was wonderful. I'm done. Thank you. Achoo. Yeah. You don't. I mean, honestly, you don't have to put everything into it. But Alicona and you said you have.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
I
like,
mean,
there are times where, after a while, you're like, this is starting to hurt. Like, it's been a long time. You ain't dead. Let's just go ahead and call it a day.
right. Okay. Well, yeah. And it's
So
no knock on the good time, but obviously the good time had to come to an end.
So wait, for us as women, maybe we need to know, how do you as a man fake that?
I will say it gets too graphic, but I will say it was possible in this situation. Yeah, I don't think I could survive explaining exactly how I got away with it, but I got away with it.
Okay.
boom.
Okay. Well, this next card is for you. And by the
Oh,
way, we will
wait,
talk
those
about-
weren't for me? Those are just for you and I just jumped in? I just gave you my
they were
full
all
criminal
for us.
record. Um,
These are
James.
for all of us.
By the way, we will talk about the fact that I did notice that ring on your finger, but that's for another topic. Hold
Oh,
on.
this? Okay.
Yeah.
It was the judge. That's how I got out of it.
Good one.
Never have I ever sent phones to a network executive to get my job.
I will say never have I ever, but I don't know that hasn't happened an insane amount on my or my child's behalf.
I love it. It's
And
so
you?
good.
I have.
Oh,
believe it or
have you?
not.
That's so wild.
Somebody on the Zoom call and I orchestrated this thing, even though he says he didn't help. He did give me an address to a network executive.
I love it.
There's a difference between there's colluding and then helping to concoct. I feel like that was your wonderful idea, and I just said, listen,
I'm not crushing your dreams.
if you're right, thank you. That was your fake orgasm, Valerie. I'm not crushing your dreams. I'm
Thank
done.
you. I love it. That was so good.
Oh wait, your audio is a little. Was there something that your audio just slightly?
Oh no.
Oh no, it's
Better,
back.
better.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh, it fell out of my ear. I have small ear holes.
I don't know.
I'm gonna leave that
so
alone.
petite.
I know. So tiny. Okay.
Yes. So potential season 4 for James's show. And it just seemed appropriate that fans could send
Yeah.
thongs to the network to let them know, hey, we really love this show and here's the proof. And he got a lot of thongs. Thongs for Hit the Floor season 4, and it worked.
I
We
love
got
that
a season
hashtag.
4, and I will say thongs are easier to mail than like basketballs
Uh-huh.
or like dancing shoes. Like it's like a thong will just fit in a little manila envelope and you get a
That is
go
Yeah.
so good.
go about your day.
Right. And
That is-
fans sent like bucket loads from what I heard. So
Yes, and from what I heard as well. We got another box, James. I was like, well,
Oh,
someone
God.
can wear them. I'm pretty sure most of them are new.
Hats off to all those fans. Like,
Right.
y'all did
Right.
good.
My Hit the Floor can never ever be accused of having passive fans. People are very, to this day. Yesterday was our 10-year anniversary of
This is
debuting.
so crazy.
Yeah, and probably our 14th anniversary of actually filming the pilot. Like I feel like we filmed the pilot and we're just like
Way
waiting
before.
and right.
Oh
But
my gosh, that's wild.
yeah, and people are always like, how can we get it back? How do we do this? Blah blah blah. And it's so much more complicated than people I think can understand.
Mm.
Let me rephrase that. I think people can understand it, but I think that it's more complicated than people give it credit for. Like I think people think like, oh, you can send a bunch of boxes of something to somebody and they'll be swayed or they'll see some data and go, oh, this was the #1 show. Like but the rights of things, just what studios are trying to do with their content versus stuff they don't own versus there's so much stuff that goes into that it's like it gets to be a little heartbreaking. When you kind of agree with people, you're like, yeah, this show could have gone on for
Right.
much longer. And B, when you're like, you can't like explain it to everyone, like here's all the hoops, pun intended, that we've like that we've gone through to get to this point. And so if anyone would know like this is like we're in like tricky territory, it would be me, but it's hard to like express that. I do think it's actually, I hate to say this, but I do think it's possible. But I think the circumstance has to be correct. None of which you asked me about, by the way.
No,
You're
but that's
talking
okay,
about
because
It
thongs.
actually is a good transition.
yeah. Transition, because today we have a topic today, and we want to talk about pivoting and how because I was saying to Val before we got on, all three of us work in an industry where we get hired and fired constantly, and it's like when you
Speak
do get
for
hired.
yourself. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
It's such a high and a highlight, and then when you lose the job, it's so heartbreaking. So being successful, you have to be able to pivot. And so for us, I mean, we wanted to know like how you pivoted since Hit the Floor
And even before that though, because a lot of people were fans of you during all the tennis stuff and hosting and stuff. So it's like, how did you go from and how, and also like what made you transition? What were those pivotal moments that you were like, now I'm going to do this, or was there
Well,
anything like that?
yeah, well, so I have never done anything as my full-time career other than what I do now. So in my case, it has never been pivoting so much as either filling in a piece of time with something that I am passionate about. Like when I started my career in '99. I just feel like a moment of silence for that one. But and it took me like a couple of years to get representation, and then I did, and then I was immediately on a show that was like a Dick Wolf, John August show, and everyone was so excited for that, all like my reps and stuff, because it was these two big powerhouse names, and it was a show on the WB, which at the time was like someone my age would be great to go to. The show was just a bonfire. It was just a giant mess box. It was just two people who couldn't see eye to eye on the direction of the show. And it just went sort of crazy. And it wasn't the big launch that I was like, I thought, oh, after this, I'll be able to jump onto the next thing and the next thing. But as you guys know and have said, there's no there are people who are like, oh, you just like managed to go like from win to win. That's not common. So oftentimes, it's feast or famine. So you have in order to be successful, I think it's less about pivoting necessarily and more about accepting the fact that you're not always going to be A, winning, or B, even in the driver's seat. And so after that show, I went to a bunch of like, I would do all the generals and meet people on all these shows, and I wasn't getting staffed. And for different reasons, you can take it personally and go, oh, it's because I suck as a writer, but you never know what people are looking for when they hire. So in my case, it could have been any number of reasons. Either the person was a friend, or there was a particular type of writer they were trying to get, someone who was more procedural instead of more like
Sure.
that, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So and then I got into writing movies for TV. So I was doing like MTV. So then I became like the TV movie guy, which was never what I was trying to do. I was always trying to do series. And then it kind of went on long enough that I don't know how viable I was seen as a series writer, because I just wasn't doing it. And so, and I also was kind of uh, a bitch about what I would write, which sounds, I think it's important to be that way, but it's also, you're giving yourself a tough road, because when I would take those generals, it was with it was it was often with shows that I just wasn't interested in. But you go and you take the general,
Okay.
you read. You guys have absolutely auditioned for stuff that you're like, I don't give a fuck if this character lives or
Yeah.
dies, but action, like. So I
Mhm.
remember going, and I would say the same thing when I would go to these meetings, and if I didn't like the show, or if I was like, oh, like, you want the job and you want to build an
Sure.
experience, but I would be like, oh, I could totally see the billboard, which is such like a dumb thing to say that really is sort of insulting if you think about it. Like, I didn't say like I love this character because, or I really want to know more about. I was just like, eh. So anyway, I kind of was like, there were shows that I was like, I would kill to write on that show. Like I read the pilot for Desperate Housewives, and I was like, I would kill to write on that show.
Mhm.
It was different from what the series wound up being. It was like darker, and like it was just anyway. The show was great, but I just wasn't on that. I remember Sex in the City. I was like, I would love to be on that. That wasn't going to
Sure.
happen. And so eventually the only thing I was going to be able to do was my own thing. I kind of felt like, unless some magical writing opportunity came along, the show that was going to hire me was the show I was going to create, and that wound up being Hit the Floor. And that was years of like wondrousness. It was a great training ground for me. And I was very supported there. And then during that time, there was a writer strike, and that's when I kind of pivoted, as you would say, into tennis, because I couldn't write, and I loved tennis, and so I thought I was kind of a star fucker. So I was like, how can I get close to the players? Oh, I can interview them. So then I wound up like doing that. So I was like interviewing all my favorite players and like
That's so
becoming
fun.
friendly with them, and that was all great. But then once the strike was over, that continued on. But then but because of that, I wound up getting a book deal with Monica Seles to do a book with books with Monica Seles, and I did one, and then Hit the Floor went forward, and I had to kind of get out of that one to do Hit the Floor. So I was always it's I was always wanting to keep busy, but I never really,
Mhm.
like, even now it's like the in terms of a pivot, you could say I've just been going to Europe quite a bit, and I've been like getting into like what is
Mhm.
there, as far as like what I'm kind of like writing and interested in writing, and also in features. So but you have to be a shark. You have to keep swimming or you
Mhm.
die.
Oh, okay.
Dang. I love that. I think it's so interesting too, because well, obviously not obviously. There's a strike now, and we've been talking about that so much on just, do you reinvent yourself, or is it not a reinvention? It's just different parts of you and different passions that you just kind of just swerve, or just do something different at the time. You were saying that there was different, obviously, because you've been doing so many different things with like makeup and then the hosting and the acting and writing. So how has that affected your strategy, or I guess like where you thought you would be?
Well, first of all, I moved out to LA to dance for Britney Spears, Janet Jackson, and Justin Timberlake, and
Wicked.
that didn't happen. I danced on Nickelodeon, you guys.
But like, by the way, like,
Professional. That's a paycheck.
listen, Nickelodeon used to be the shit. So
And by the way,
I'm
they
just
all
saying.
danced on Disney Channel, so
Exactly. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. So, like,
Yeah,
you know.
but that was a hard decision to leave dancing. Like, I knew a lot of it was self-confidence. I just didn't have the confidence to think that I was worthy of the job, and I think I self-sabotaged a lot. And coming to that conclusion and being like, maybe this is not my path. I know it's not. I don't even love it anymore, but the fact that I'm acknowledging it, it's sort of heartbreaking, but okay. And then I got into hosting, and maybe you know this, James, or maybe you don't. But I was doing hosting, I loved it, and I was like, hey, this is my calling. Like, I have a big mouth, and I don't belong standing behind an artist. I belong in front of the camera, you know? And then I saw Hit the Floor, didn't know what it was, but I signed up for it at AfterBuzz TV, you guys. And I was like, well, it involves dancing. I thought it was a reality show, but it obviously was not. And I was like, oh, it's scripted. Wait, these people can dance and act all in one show. Oh, okay. I'm going back to acting because I did theater when I was a kid. And the fact that the two were married in a scripted series was so mind blowing to me that inspired me to get out in class. And so I went and I signed up at the Meisner Center and I did the 2-year program and I did all these other classes. But I was like, okay. And I was always interviewing you guys. And it just reminded me of how much fun it was. So really you're indirectly responsible for me going back to what I had wanted to be when I was a
I love
Well,
that.
I think that's beautiful, number one, and I love to hear it, especially a day after although today is Memorial Day, right? So I
Yes.
don't know when this drops, but I mean that was
Right.
10 Memorial. I think that's
That's so
wonderful, and I
cool.
think that also really speaks to what Val was saying, as far as like, with if there's a strike, do you reinvent and so on and so forth. I think that if you are passionate about what you're doing, I think it's important to always get better. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's important to like push yourself and challenge yourself and say, does this character arc land the way I want it to, or whatever it happens to be? And that opportunities can come around because you're not looking into the future going, oh, someday there's going to be a show where dancing and acting together. Or frankly, there were opportunities that came the guys' way because they were able to play basketball and they like shot up the list of like the skills that you need to have to be on the show. So
Yeah.
really wonderful actors who might have not been in front and center for their parts got to be because of that. And the same with the dancers. There were some dancers who like kind of were dancer first, actor second, and really like showcased insane, like really wonderful acting ability. And
Mhm.
then there were some people who were actor first, dancer second, who showed how like badass they were by embracing that part and really
Mhm.
trying and really ultimately getting it. And so you never, as far as like pivoting and like changing, I like the fact that like in Alacona, you're a great example of somebody who um is sort of like you follow to me it seems like you follow your feelings. Like I feel like
Mhm.
this is something that I want to participate in, and so you do. And I kind of feel like that's a great way to go through life because you'll always be happy doing it,
Mhm.
as opposed to if you're more calculated about the things that you're doing, like, okay, well, this is maybe an opportunity. I don't love this, but I know I can do it. And maybe, or this is where the money is. So I'm gonna, because
Mhm.
I didn't create the expression, but it is a good one, which is if you follow your passion, the money will follow. Or,
Mhm.
Mhm.
whatever the well said version of that expression is.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Because I would have done Hit the Floor for free. I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
my agents wouldn't have let me, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I
that makes so much sense.
well, and if you eat and breathe and drink, like it's just you get your energy from it. And
Yeah.
so I know, and I've said, like people keep asking me, like, what's your next thing? What's your next thing?
Yeah.
Where is it? And it's like a two-prong answer. Where on the one hand, I've had some things that have come so close, you guys, like where I was just like a week away from the announcement, where it was just like your life is about to change.
Oh.
I like a humongous movie or like a series that had like all these like auspices attached and just things don't come together the way you want. So I've been writing and working on these projects that are now on pause because of the strike. But the other answer to that is I've said no to a lot of stuff because I know how if you're doing it right and doing it well, how much it can sort of take over maybe you're not doing it right or well, and you're just myopically focused. But I know how much you kind of are invested in what you do. So if someone says, we really love you to take over, this show, or we'd love you to create this thing for this, actress who, whatever. If it's something that I'm just like, I don't really feel it. I don't think it's for me. And I know it's going to require 24/7 obsession. And if it doesn't, you don't have that energy. So I've said no to a bunch of stuff because if you're not feeling it, you will be punished later.
What's interesting is I've actually been told that I say yes to a lot of stuff. But that's how, for me, I've created opportunities because the stuff I would have never, but I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't know who I'll meet.
That's an interesting kind of, that's an interesting philosophical kind of like debate conundrum, whatever, because I absolutely agree with you that the more you say no to, the less you do. And some things lead to other things. Like I wouldn't have done that book with Monica Seles if I hadn't gone into tennis.
Right.
And that creates other opportunities. So saying yes is also a great thing, but I guess it's
also knowing your like how full your plate is too, because I feel like you've said yes to certain things and like, and you dive in, like you go all in, and like you're up to the wee hours of the night, like doing all the things. And sometimes it's like, girl, like say no, just one thing, just so you can one thing you can say no. But depending on how full your plate is and how much of your passion and time you can actually invest into these things, I feel like that's when saying no would be beneficial, because it's like if you can't give it your all, or like have that pride when it's done, I'm like, I did that, like I put all of it in, or you weren't spread too thin, then it makes sense to not say yes. So that is interesting on like being in the place in your life where you know what's worth the yes, what's worth the no.
Well, and also I'm coming from a position that like, oh, it's so nice I can say no. But it's like not everyone is in that position. So it's kind of like,
you guys.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I'm a saver.
But I love that. That's so good that you have that sense of confidence of like, because even if you're not successful, I feel like you need to have that in yourself to be like, no, like, I don't know, like that's not what I want right now.
I think there's confidence that you earn and confidence you have. And I think that the confidence that I have is stuff I've earned. I don't think I was like born like confident, but I think like the more you do things, the more comfortable you get with them. I know I can run a show. I know I can break a story. I know I can hire the perfect actress to play a role, Val. And so, but another thing I was going to say was I think it gets really easy to blame yourself for the state of your career. And I was listening to a podcast today, hot off the presses, but it was Josh Horowitz was interviewing Elizabeth Olsen, and she was talking about who I am like fucking obsessed with. I love she's like, Scarlet Witch in the Marvel universe. And she was talking about how random things, and the interviewer, Josh knew her and was like, yeah, I don't really hear like what's next for you. And she's like, I have absolutely nothing next, because she's like, this one project I had fell apart, this one thing, the actor availability to, and now we have the strikes. Elizabeth Olsen, who has been in, I want to say 8 different Marvel projects, who gets a ton of cash, who has an iconic Marvel character, and who could pick and choose, had nothing to do right now. And she's happy about it, and she'll be fine. She'll get her next thing. No one's worried about Elizabeth Olsen. But if you were her and you were like a completely neurotic person, you'd be like, oh, what did I do wrong? And that's not reality.
Right. We have to wrap things up soon, but I just want to say, I love that you said, because it connected with me very much, how you had said, like with Hit the Floor, you had gone through a period of time where you were not getting the jobs that you wanted to, and you're like, well, if I'm going to get hired, I'm going to do this thing. And that's sort of my own mentality in terms of backtracking to your question and me doing all the things. Like, I didn't try to be a writer. You are a writer, James LaRosa. I am an actor who was just not getting auditions, threw a wig on me and everything, just not getting sent out. I don't know what it is. But
even right there, you just did it. I don't know what it is. Like it's your face. like it's your face or something.
It's like, well, nothing, so I'm just gonna write projects for myself, you know? And then with that whole like saying yes thing, somebody I was dog sitting for that was a soap opera famous person, I just saw scripts around her house all the time that she was selling, you know? And I was like, how do you do that? I got shit, I wrote shit, you know? And she read it and was like, I love it. And you know, because I emailed you about it, like I ended up writing a bunch of movie of the weeks with her, you know, but then I wasn't able to audition for them. And then I was like, well, then why am I doing this? This is not my passion. But I've turned around since then and I've written a couple of features and I'm working on a pilot. And again, I don't know why I'm doing it, but something in me tells me like I don't know how else I'm gonna get hired. So I'm just gonna do the thing myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, the difference is I literally do nothing else. Like it's just writing, and so I was
Right.
just like, yeah. But the question, what was the question in that? I know you said it, and then I
I
fell
was
off.
just saying basically like I like that you said that you took it upon yourself to start the initiative to create
Right.
your thing.
Well, that's was almost a necessity. It sounds like a really wonderful like stand moment where like, well, this is what I have to do. But like literally it was just a necessity because if I'm not getting hired on this stuff, I knew what I like to do. Like I knew I like soapy stuff. I knew I like twists. I knew I liked attitude. I knew I loved women. I knew that I loved there was things that I, just loved, and this stuff wasn't coming along. Like for a while it was all about the procedural, and anyone who's doing anything that had like a story with that continued on, those shows weren't going. And that's actually we're starting to venture into that area again where it's like networks don't want to buy anything that you can't like swing into in 5 seconds, pick up what it is and then like move on from and just pick up at any point and whatever. So it's like, which is not like it's not the kind of TV that I enjoy watching or doing. But I will say that I remember I'll make this brief, but I remember I have my first boss before I was on a series. I was an assistant for a woman named Margaret Oberman. She had written for Saturday Night Live. She wrote Troop Beverly Hills, and I was working for her. And oh my God, I literally lost the point of what I was going to say. I worked for Margaret. Hold on. I worked for Margaret, and oh my God, I actually lost the point. I said I'll make this brief, and my brain was like, "Can you?"
Moment.
You're gonna have to. Oh no, that's like full ADHD. Wait, let me see if I can grab it with enough time. I said I'll make it brief. I'm going to do. Okay, thank you. So she asked me. This is post Hit the Floor or during Hit the Floor. She was then teaching at UCLA, like the after like the evening classes where people would come and do whatever. And so because she had these like great credits, she would have these like amazing people come in and like talk to her class. So she was having a panel. So she's like, will you come in and talk to the class? And it was me, Catherine O'Hara. This was before Schitt's Creek. And somebody who was like another comedy writer who had like won all these Emmys. And like, it's just, we're sitting side by side talking to her students about like how we broke in. And first of all, they were all monster talents who were wildly famous and had all the awards. Is everything okay, Alagona?
Yeah, no, I'm like, I think this is going to cut you off. If it does, we'll have to call you right back.
Oh, I see less than a minute. It will cut me off. Should I stop or should I just say, and that was the end? Yay.
No, that's so good.
Wait, hold please. We were like, can we upgrade? I don't think we can upgrade. Let's call it. We're going to call you back in like 2 seconds.
Okay, good.
Because I just want to finish the story.
Perfect.